Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. Apologies, it's been a while since my last video. I seem to always be apologising for the length of time between my videos, but my life's gone a bit crazy, so yeah, it's been a while since I've actually put anything up. But I wanted to get one out this week because Northlane have dropped a new album entitled Alien. Now, bit of background about Northlane. Northlane are an Australian metalcore progressive metal band, and they were formed back in 2009. They've got a really big fan base in Australia, actually, and they've even won a few ARIA awards, which are kind of the equivalent of like the Brit Awards or Grammys in the respective countries. And this will be their fifth album. They first released Discoveries in 2011. They followed up with Singularity in 2013. And they then changed the vocalist, actually, after these first two albums. I wasn't going to run through all the band members because there has been a few changes. But the main big change that everyone will always sort of refer to is the change of vocalist. And after two albums, they brought in new vocalist Marcus Bridge. So the first album with him came out in 2015 entitled Node. And then they followed it up in 2017 with Mesmer. And here we are, 2019, with Alien. Now, I've always found metalcore to be a very sort of generic and sometimes confining genre. I always find it more interesting when bands try and not break out of it, but do more with the sound. And there is things you can do. I mean, look at bands like Architects, what they did, or even Bring Me the Horizon when they released Sempiternal, or even Parkway Drive when they released Ire. It may not please all the metal fans, but all the metalcore fans, sorry, but I find it more interesting. And Northlane is certainly one of those bands. They've always found evolution and progression in the genre and within their music. And they've always seemed to be bubbling under the surface, Northlane. They've always been the next big thing, and they've always been said that the next album they put out will be the next big thing, and it'll push them onto the bigger stages. But now we're 5 albums deep, and it's still sort of everyone's keeps saying, oh, they're showing so much promise, and what a transition this will be. They're almost sort of going to be the next big thing, but it hasn't seemed to happen yet. So maybe Alien will make them that next big thing. So we'll go into the album a bit. Alien was described by the band themselves as a very personal album. It's all centred around lead singer Marcus Bridges' sort of violent upbringing he had. So I think it's obviously very personal to him and personal to the band. Now, straight away with this album, the most notable thing is the more different sound, let's just say, at the moment, to this album than the ones previous. What I mean by that is it's not changing direction for them, but it's a different sort of sounding. It's a much more digital and electronic sound to it. Almost machine-like. If anyone remembers the band like Strapping Young Lad, when it's musically not like that, but in terms of production, it always sounded like Strapping Young Lad were in a machine or something like that, and it almost sounds like that. The production on this sounds very much like Strapping Young Lad or Fear Factory. It's very machine-like and very digital-like. This could piss off a lot of metalcore fans, but everything pisses off metalcore fans. To me, it's a lot more interesting when bands try and do new things. And this is a band evolving and making interesting changes to their sort of core sound, essentially. Songs like Bloodline are still huge songs on this album. I love it in Bloodline as well. There's like a 3-note synth in the chorus, which is like this descending 3 notes, which is so simple and so basic, but you sort of wonder why someone thought to put that in there, and it's so masterfully done. It ends up being like the best hook on that song. So yeah, at times this album dips into industrial metal even, with songs like Talking Heads, which has got this sort of stomping beat and rhythm to it. At times the album sort of drops into the more experimental, electronic, progressive, ambient sort of style, which reminds me of there was a band, well, still is a band actually, also Australian coincidentally, a band called Dead Letter Circus. They released an album a few years ago now called The Catalyst Fire, which was an excellent album. Nothing they've done since ever sort of came up to it in my eyes. But it reminds me of that after a while, but this is a lot more sort of aggressive and urgent. Catalyst Fire was a lot more sort of experimental and progressive, let's say. And this is masterfully done on this album. It doesn't feel out of place what Northlane are doing here. It doesn't feel jarring. I think if you are a Northlane fan, it won't feel out of place for you at all. They've incorporated elements of EDM on here and dance music. Their most sort of, let's say, old school sounding song on here is a song called Freefall in my eyes, which is a metalcore song at heart. It's got breakdowns in it, and it's got the soaring vocal melody in the chorus. But then you've got songs like Eclipse, where they've embraced the newer sound, and it's got a big dance beat behind it, whilst never really feeling out of place. It still feels essentially Northlane. The most fascinating track on here for me is a track called Rift, which is almost an ambient post-rock song. Bridges' vocals are pushed sort of high up in the mix on this song, and it showcases his more sort of like the dynamic, massive talent he has as a vocalist. They sort of feel, his vocals feel almost like they're floating over these synths, and the sort of near absence of guitars on that track really give it a very spacey, airy feel. A lot of times on this album, Bridges' vocals are very compressed and sort of machine-like, but on that song, especially, it really sort of is his song, and it feels essential for him. It still has these big, heavy numbers. The bass-heavy led song Vultures, which they released before the album dropped, is one of the best on here. It sounds like Bridges' vocals sound pissed off and angry on here, and Pettersson's drumming on that song is brutal and blistering. It's a really interesting album, and I think it won't annoy Northlane fans. If you are a Northlane fan, I still think this will be for you. Closing track, Sleepless, actually is an interesting one, which is a drum and bass track, let's just say. It's a piano-led 90s drum and bass number. But for me, this whole album is a real bold step forward for Northlane. What could have been a huge misstep for them? It could have been, we tried something new and it's totally failed. But for me, they've tried something new while retaining their metalcore sound. They've just incorporated newer sonic elements in it, and it's worked brilliantly. It's crafted brilliantly. It's interesting. It's sonically diverse. And it's a real gem of an album. And I really hope it does help Northlane go on to the higher echelons of metalcore and alternative metal. If you've got any interest in progressive rock or metalcore, or if you're a Northlane fan already, then this won't disappoint you. Go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.